My name is Kyle Steele, and I'm a candidate for Norman City Council Ward 6 for the upcoming February 2026 elections. And this is a quick summary for what happened in the City Council meeting on October 14th, 2025. Just for transparency purposes, because that's one of the pillars of my campaign, I am re-recording this video on the 16th, I believe it is right now, 16th to 17th. Essentially, I did the first video and it was very, very dry, very boring. It was like just the facts, and I posted it and I didn't like how it turned out. So I'm gonna try to do this in a more like casual kind of almost like podcast style. It may end up being a little longer as a result, but I think it'll turn out much better. So we'll see how this feels and kind of go from there. That being said, similar to the first video is I'll be linking in the description below kind of the key points of the meeting for those who do want to skip to a specific portion, kind of based off of this summary that I give here today. Everyone was present at this city council meeting with the exception of Ward 3, which is still currently vacant. Mayor Hallman, he did give an update on this, that the selection process is still ongoing. The candidate committee will be doing interviews here shortly, and the goal is to have a replacement counselor sworn in by the next main city council meeting. That person will then serve until the February elections, where they will have a special election for Ward 3, and whoever wins that Ward 3 election will be sworn in to serve the remainder of that 1-year term, and then that ward will be back on the regular cycle for the February 2027 election. This is essentially the same thing that's happened in War 5. So hey, I mean, there's 6 elections this February for the city council, which doesn't happen too often. This meeting was a lengthy one, about like 2 hours 45 minutes. But if you just care about the actual business portion of the meeting, it was only 30 minutes long, real quick, and then the public comments took up the remainder 2 hours and 15 minutes. The first part is kind of like what you were expected. Minutes were approved. There were announcements from the counselors, mostly revolving around the Citizens Academy, which I believe just wrapped up this week. And then there was a proclamation to declare October Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which passed unanimously. Once again, if you want to see everything that was on the non-consent docket, feel free to just look at the packet that's going to be linked below. Is mostly related to contracts, ordinances, reports, easements, plats, lawsuits. Yeah, just a whole gauntlet of things. The one thing I will note, even though this wasn't technically part of the meeting, is there was an item pulled from the consent docket that is probably going to be a bit polarizing in the study session. May even turn to an election issue, depending on how long the item that was pulled is delayed. But it was a contract renewal for the Cleveland County Economic Development Coalition, or CCEDC. For those of you who are unaware, it is the rebranding of the Norman Economic Development Coalition, or NEDC, essentially in September, I think it was, maybe a little bit before last year. They just rebranded because the stated purpose was, they're going to be focusing more on Cleveland County instead of just Norman, and so they wanted the name of this coalition to reflect that. Anyways, the item that was pulled from the consent docket was a contract renewal, which that contract will again be linked below, along with everything else. Essentially, the CCEDC has a contract with the city of Norman, where for $1 per person, based off of census data, they partner and provide services for the city of Norman. So if this contract was renewed, it would cost the city approximately $130,000 for the year. And like I said, it comes with a bunch of benefits that are listed in the contract, which you could take a look at and form your own opinion on, and let your city councilor know if you think this is something that should be renewed or not. I imagine this is going to come up in a future city council study session. Which one remains to be seen, because it was just pulled like the day before the meeting, I believe. So it almost made it through, but yeah, someone noticed and pulled it for discussion. There weren't any non-consent items that were being discussed in the meeting. You know, it just went from the non-consent items straight to the public comments, which is why, again, it was only 30 minutes long for the standard portion. But those 2 hours and 15 minutes, there was essentially a lot of comments that happened regarding social media postings by some members of the city council, and whether that is appropriate or not. You know, this is just kind of intended to be like a fast facts of what happened during the meeting, so I'm not going to be weighing in on that. You know, once again, you know, you could watch the full comment section if you want to see what people were saying. The only thing I will note from people who brought up standard concerns was someone did mention that they were concerned about the city budget. So for those of you who aren't aware, the city is currently running at a deficit, which means they're spending more than they're taking in. The general fund is still positive, thankfully, but you know, because the city is running at a deficit, it is dropping. So that is going to have to be looked at some point. Norman does maintain a rainy day fund that is at around 4 million, I believe. I could be wrong on that number though. But obviously you don't want to dip into a rainy day fund just because you're spending more than you're taking in. You know, that's mainly meant for an actual emergency. So I'm sure that, you know, the city finances are going to have to be closely looked at some point here soon, because the current rate of spending is not sustainable unless you want to dip into that emergency fund. But hey, that was it for the meeting. You know, like I said, it was pretty quick, apart from the public comments, which were a lot spicier than usual. That's probably the best way I could say it. But that's neither here nor there. You know, if you like this video, feel free to tell me so I can keep doing them in this style. If you want to learn more about me or my campaign, you could go to KyleForNorman.com, listed below with everything else, or you could just email me directly at KyleForNorman@gmail.com. Thank you.